and I was mentioning this to Linda before she got ready to leave, that was a real treat. James, you've met with other staffers. Nancy, I suspect you have. I have met with many over the years, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter what. He was attentive. He was responsive. He was inquisitive in a nice kind of way and great on the feedback. So what I would say is you were extremely fortunate in this training to get started with somebody who gave you a pretty comfortable feeling of how to do this and some good feedback. And then you got good feedback from the other two. I couldn't have orchestrated that any better. I'm just thrilled that he joined us. And again, he's been around Capitol Hill. This is new in this office. And he asked nice questions. While we were on, he already looked up Representatives Dingell bills from last year. I mean, he was doing his research while we were talking with him. That's pretty amazing. That might not have happened in the office, by the way, because he'd be sitting at a desk with a pad of paper, and I don't know whether he would or wouldn't have his laptop computer with him. Maybe he would, because that's what he does. Again, overall, good job. But what I loved, and I only slipped him a 20 to the first group, is they didn't follow the script. The script said, name and where you're from, and then come back. And he said, you didn't do that. You started to talk and you went whatever and whatever. So again, follow that outline. Yes, it would be helpful to have more time to know the research. This is practice. Again, if you're going to do this, but again, I'll share with you, if you go to the annual, what's called Disability Policy Seminar in DC, which this year is being postponed because of hotel problems, there's thousands of people who usually attend. And it's jointly sponsored by a whole bunch of the national disability organizations. They'll give you a little more. You will get the fact sheet to leave, fine, okay? But you're still not going to get the summary of the research. You're not going to get all that because there's no way to do that in a conference except to give you, again, the bullets or the highlights. What it teaches you, as he does, and several of you have already asked me, is can we get some of this? So I will be sending Linda some of the research. Hopefully I can send you the briefs, not the whole dissertation, on the quality, because again, think about this. He asked about quality of life. That tells me he has some sensitivity to human services, whether it's disability or not. You don't always get that when you meet with a staffer or even a member. Quality of life. He knew to ask that question. Great. We have got data from what's called CQL, the Council on Quality Leadership, 21 personal outcome measures, looking at people's quality outcomes when they get real person-centered planning, when they get integrated community, when they get supported living. And then I mentioned to him, because part of this is something called Money Follows the Person, we have a federal research project, name won't mean anything to you, but it did to him, a company called Mathematica, paid for by the federal government to look at people over 5 years who left institutions and went in the community across the board, and they looked at quality of life, statistically significant, which is important to a researcher, on everything they measured when people left the nursing home or the ICF and moved into the community with appropriate supports, and they reduced costs by 40 to 50%. Other than that, why would you want to do it? So again, we have it. It's not well shared. I will try to get you some of the compressed pieces. The same on employment. Yesterday, I mentioned the Iowa savings on healthcare. That's a nice 3-pager. I will send you that. I want you to have the tools. But again, you don't have to have every bit of it because that's not what they expect you to know. You can either have the piece of paper or say, yeah, there is a research and I'd be happy to get it for you. That's fine. Don't expect yourself to be the expert on every piece of this piece of legislation, because even the people who get paid to lobby don't always know all of that, okay? So I don't want you to be overly intimidated. But I thought overall, some of it went exceptionally well. Some of you really responded nicely to him in a positive way. But again, the other thing that I stated in the planning, and it didn't happen at every group, is everybody's got to have a part. And it doesn't have to be exactly 2 minutes, but it's got to be a couple of minutes. You can't just sit there and identify yourself and not contribute. Why are you there? Okay, that's really important. And again, if you're going to do meetings like this, never more than 5 people, because if you get 10 minutes, you're going to get 2 minutes apiece. Okay, 3 to 5 is what I consider the magic number. 2 is fine. 1, if you have the relationship, is also fine. But if you're going to start out 3 to 5 maximum, and do practice it. Okay, stand in front of a mirror, whatever. Get it comfortable where you know the stuff. And again, don't know, I'll find out. Okay, what else did I make out? I think, no, that was it. I mean, he said about leaving him a piece of paper. I thought that was great. That's what he expects. The other thing he pointed out, and I'm going to start, because I'll always modify my script, who's the contact person in the office? Remember, he said, who would be the person in Dingell's office? I don't know who that is. I think I know who it is in Casey's office, but now I'm going to add that to my outline. Every couple of years, I change it. I've never had that before, but that's a fair question. If I'm going to call that office, they could have 15 or 20 staff in there. They might not know who's handling that bill. Oh, if I know it's John Smith, fine, I'm going to call John Smith. I can look him up and call him. Okay, so that I thought was helpful as well. Any other thoughts, comments, reflections from you? You feel more comfortable doing this next time? How many of you had ever been in a meeting with a legislator or a member of Congress before today? Anybody? Yes, that was it, one of you. Okay, well, now you've gotten started. So you're going to graduate from preschool. Next week, it's elementary. And the week after that, be middle. And then pretty soon you'll be in community college. No, I mean, take the today as a starting point, and there will be more work on this bill and other bills. I guarantee you, this is pivotal for the future of people with all types of disabilities to have a real quality of life in the community and not sit at home waiting for 10 or 15 or 20 years, as one of you talked about. That's disgusting. That is this, or having to quit my job so I can provide that support. Several of you told that story. He resonated to that. He got that. That makes no sense at all. Okay. But so again, it takes both the facts, because he did ask how many people in the district, okay, and the story. And I'm going to read you something that I found a number of years ago that says it beautifully. It's called The Weave of Your Story, written by somebody named Mark Gaffney, G-A-F-N-I. Listen carefully. Truth set out about the town, naked as the day he was born. Being naked, no one would invite him in for talk and tea. All the people who saw him turned on their heels and ran. He was quite lonely and felt terribly unappreciated. One day he came across Story, surrounded by an eager and admiring crowd. Story was dressed splendidly, with fine cloth and colors, telling an elaborate tale. Truth walked up, and people ran, leaving Story and Truth alone in the middle of the square. Truth started to wail. How is it that everyone gathers around you to listen to your tales? What I have to say is at least as important as what you say, but people treat me like the plague. Story replied, for somebody so smart, you sure are stupid. Look at you, naked as the day you were born. Of course, no one wants to see you unless you're in a strip club. Oh, no. You need to spruce yourself up. Here, take some of my clothes. Once people see you dressed up with Story, you will be the talk of the town. Truth took the advice and put on the Story's splendid clothes. From that time on, Truth and Story went hand in hand. And so to this day, to find your truth, you must tell your story. So it's not just the personal anecdotes. It's not just the facts and the figures. It's both. That's why I always say you've got to have 1 or 2 personal stories in the meeting. And he said it as well. He wants to know, what does this mean to you? It doesn't mean every one of you, but 1 or 2 of you must do that so that they can put a face, a human context. Oh, and then, yeah, I need to know there's 600 people in our catchment area who are on that wait list. That's important to know. That's 600 voters, or maybe 1,200 voters, or 1,800, depending on the size of the family. But again, we need both. And when I saw this, I said, okay, this reinforces how you have to mix the messaging in when you have the meeting. So I share that with you. Okay, anything else on that? Nope. Okay. Some of you did a better introduction of your family member with disability than others. I've got a few more pieces of paper. For future, and particularly when you're writing, these are two samples from folks who went through Partners in Illinois, sample personal paragraphs of how they introduced their family. Again, your family is different, but I give them to you in terms of what they were trying to communicate to set a different expectation of who this is about. So if somebody would pass these out, one for everybody, there's plenty to go around. And then, again, we got into the wages and some of that issues, and there is no time in any prep to cover it all. But because your state even now could do this, and a few states do, there is a group called the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals. Have any of you ever heard of them before? NADSP. This is their code of ethics. This becomes a mandatory responsibility for anybody who becomes a direct support professional under this credentialing. If you can't subscribe to that, you can't get the job. Then you get all kinds of training. You can go to their website. Joe Macbeth, who developed this, was a DSP. He has built a whole community in this country and is now working with the U.S. Department of Labor to get what's called the Standard Occupational Classification job in the U.S. government standard labor code for DSP, so we can really gather data around the country about what are these people being paid or not being paid, because they're not fitting any of the typical job descriptions. So I wanted you to see when it says the states are going to set standards for training, I'm biased. Put in there that every DSP will be trained by the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. They also have career paths, so you don't get stuck just doing entry. You can specialize working with people on autism. Somebody talked about somebody on a G2, people who are medically complex. You get career advancement. You get a pay raise. What a novel idea. Joe has built all this stuff out in a little over 10 years. Okay, because he lived in that world and saw how nasty it was, both not what he was trying to do, but many of his peers who were clueless, and they didn't have to learn anything except how to give first aid and how to take somebody to the bathroom. Whoopee-doo. And for that, we probably shouldn't pay more than $14 an hour. But if we're going to pay 18 or 20, we need a certification. And then, again, this is a draft, but I pass it out to you. This is his version of what is the job description for a direct support professional. And let me just read you the first bullet. Direct support professionals assist people who need support to lead self-directed lives and participate fully in their community. Direct support professionals recognize the unique gifts, preferences, and needs of each person supported. Does that sound familiar, like what's in the law? That's how he's tailored this sample job description. And it's worth, they don't have to copy it exactly, but pass this out. That's, I think, my last piece of paper, just to see when you start talking about this, there is some standardized description of what is this person supposed to be trained how to do. And we need to be using it because it is evidence-based. It is working. And the agencies that have adopted this have really less turnover. They have more career advancement, and they have better outcomes. And they pay better. They've managed to finagle a budget or do whatever they have to do. So it's all part of the same agenda, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever we want to call it. Okay. We talked a little bit yesterday, but I want to talk a little bit more about the media and public relations and all of that. Oh, we're good. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, feel free. Got plenty of paper, and you all can come take extra copies if you want, or they'll go back to the office, I guess. I'm not taking them home. The media are important players in public policy. The media often are ignorant about our issues. I am so tired of continuing to see stories about people with special needs. No, there is no such thing. They're not comfortable with the word disability. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not saying go in and deal with that issue, but they're always looking for stories of, quote, human interest. I don't know if any of the papers in Alabama have had anything in the last couple of years about the waiting list, about the workforce crisis. Maybe James and Nancy know. Some states, there have been a little bit of newspaper coverage. Congressional staff, state legislators read the papers as it relates to things that might come to the legislature. All right? In your city, in your county, in your town, find out who in your community knows somebody at the local paper, the TV station, the radio station. Again, relationships. If you don't, find out yourself and just start the same initiative. Gee, I'd like to get you to learn more about what's happening in the world of disability, and there are some big issues coming up in Congress or in the state legislature or whatever. Can we schedule a time to meet? More than likely, they're going to say yes. And they particularly love in the, I'll call it not biggest city papers, but they're okay too. The smaller towns, they love the personal stories. They love the human interest stories to tell about the Smith family, the Jones family, the Hernandez family, or whoever it is, good or bad. And we certainly like to share the good stories. Okay, here's Johnny, who thanks to good customized employment is now working and isn't on welfare anymore. And then here's the boss saying, what a great worker he is. I didn't know what this could look like. You can't put a dollar value on that story in the newspaper. No offense to our advocacy. How many people are going to see it? How many employers are going to see it? How many parents or self-advocates are going to see it and begin to say, wow, parents particularly, I'm one. Well, if that kid can work, then why can't my kid work, right? That's what parents do. If that kid can live in their own apartment with support, why does my kid have to be in a 4-person group home or on a wait list for 10 years or whatever it is? So the media can be unbelievably helpful in getting our messaging, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, because I have been well taught by members of Congress staff, even though they may be in DC, the local office staff scan the papers. If there's anything dealing with federal legislation, they scan it and send it, or they email it, or they do whatever they have to do. They want to know what the newspaper is saying about that bill or that piece of legislation or whatever it may be. The same is true with the local stuff, even on federal issues. So think about, who do you know who might be a newspaper reporter? Or who do you know who's a friend, a neighbor, somebody you go to church with or know from some other association who might know somebody at the local paper, radio, or TV? And don't knock radio. Lots of people still listen to the radio. And again, TV reporters love the human interest stories. They want to know what's impacting the local community, good, bad, and ugly. So as part of our advocacy, and that's not everybody, in your own community, sit down with your peer group. Okay, who's going to take that piece on? Who's a good writer, can help write the op-ed that will go in or whatever it is? That's another skill set. That person may not be very good at face-to-face meetings with members of Congress or staff or whatever, but they've got a degree in journalism or something, or writing. Let them do the writing. We can review it. Oh, that looks great. Okay, put that in the paper in the op-ed column. Or go and try and see if you can get the newspaper reporter to take that and then write a story about it. All I'm telling you is this stuff is very doable, but it's usually not on our radar screen. Most reporters are, except for, the headline people, are really looking for stories of interest in the local community or in the state. My guess is the typical reporter, again, doesn't know what a home and community-based waiver is, doesn't know how many thousands of people are on the waiting list and how long they're on the waiting list, or what it could do to change a community. So again, that's just one of the advocacy tools in your toolbox that somebody takes on who's good at that. Somebody else takes on the community organizing, somebody arranging the meetings. There are plenty of roles here for people to do. It's not that one of us have to do it all, because you will burn out, and we don't want you to burn out. You got to recharge your batteries all the time. Remember I said you got to have fun and have parties. Okay, so think about that in your toolbox. The other thing that I want to talk about, and this is your homework, is a thank you letter. And you do have homework. You are going to write Nick Ayers a thank you letter for today's meeting, and you will get his email, and you will also copy. Linda, are they going to copy you? Who do they copy? Yeah, you will copy Linda because it's homework, and that way she knows you did it. And again, in the letter, be sure you, and I've got a handout for it, but be sure you have your email. Thank you. Okay, your street, your city, your zip code, and put your phone number in there. They don't have to look it up if they want to do a follow-up with you based on something you said in the letter. And they may, you never know, but you want to make this user-friendly. Again, I mentioned to you yesterday, I didn't ask Nick about it today. They want to hear from you. He was clear about that. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on, okay? If they don't know what's on your mind, they don't know that it's an issue, right? And so his boss might say, well, it's a nice bill from Dingle. Nobody's bothered me about it, so I'm not going to worry about it. I can't get mad at him, can I? No, he represents people. And if the people in his district haven't said, please pay attention to this bill, and here's why, whether through meetings, letter writing, emails, or phone calls, he gets a free ride. Right? I said that yesterday. So our responsibility is to make sure the elected officials, once elected, know what our concerns are, what our priorities are. So the letter also multiplies, because most people don't, and this has been told to be by many people who are working at the federal level. The numbers are a little smaller at the state. A typical member of the United States Senate, because they have such a big constituency, typically will say, if we get one letter, we presume that represents 20 to 25 constituents in the state, similarly situated, who didn't write or couldn't write or whatever. So all of a sudden, think about if they got 500 letters and they multiply that times 20, that's like 10,000 people in the state who care about this issue. In the House, the districts are smaller. They go with 1 to 10. Okay, fine. 1 to 10 ain't a bad ratio. And again, get as many people as you can. Do not use form letters. You can use a block letter, but you must put in that paragraph about why it's important to you, who you are. The intro can be, yeah, I'm writing you about this bill or whatever, because lots of the national organizations will do that on their listserv. But don't buy into the ones, and I'm not going to be naming them, who just say, sign your name here and send it in. I will tell you, congressional staff will say they don't read them. They know there's a campaign with a form letter. They want your personal investment, like you did today. Think about if you were on the other side of the table. Oh, great, I got 5,000 letters. Nothing said anything about you. It was just, please support this bill. It's going to be good for this, this, and this. Thank you very much, and sign your, all you have to do is sign your name on the form that comes to you by email, and in 10 seconds, you've taken care of it. No. They want to know you put a little time into the letter. That's fair. So this is how to write the letter. Always address, if you're writing the member of Congress, dear Senator, dear Representative. In this case, even though he said call him Nick, please write dear Mr. Ayers. Okay? Give dignity to the position he holds. All right? And again, this is a follow-up letter. Sometimes the letters aren't follow-up. They're different things. Thank you so much again for meeting with me and my colleagues or friends, however you want to frame that, today on a Saturday to help us understand better how to be good legislative advocates, whatever you want to, whatever words you're comfortable with. Okay. Then, as you'll recall, we talked with you about Senate Bill 100 by Senator Casey, blah, 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 soon to be introduced by Representative Dingle, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's reminding him why. and then do your personal bit. Here is where everybody does the personal, whatever hat you're wearing. Why is this important to you? Again, little summary of what the bill will do, and you can pull that from the Casey thing. It's going to raise the standard of wages. It's going to increase the federal match, which will help with the waiting list. I mean, the Casey thing, you can go through it. There's about 4 or 5 things that are really listed in that 2-pager. You don't have to list them all. List 2 or 3 that are most relevant to you, okay? And we hope when the bill is introduced that your office will give it careful review. Please feel free to reach out to me for any further questions. If any of you did offer to provide something, provide it and whatever, okay? And normally that letter should be done, I would say, within 3 to 5 days of the visit, because you heard him say it. In the next 5 days, particularly when he's back in the office on Monday, he's going to see 50 or 60 people a day. Okay, and that's what they do. They're in and out of meetings, committee hearings, staff meetings. It's not a fun life, let me tell you. I have some people I know who've done this work, and it's really stressful. It really is. So be respectful of that. Get the recognition in there to thank them. Lots of people don't. So again, this is common courtesy. Particularly, he gave time on a Saturday. He doesn't have to do that. I don't think he gets time off for working on Saturday. He's a salaried position. He did it. Somebody else who was going to probably had another meeting to go to. They do a lot of work on the weekends because that's when there are meetings, conferences, that kind of stuff. But again, your own style. Again, restate the ask. We're asking you, your office, your representative car, to support this bill once it is introduced. All right. A little bit of the statistics, if you can find some of the things he asked for. How many people in your community are potentially affected? If you can get the wait list number for your county, put it in there. Don't wait to do that, but if you can, all right. And then thank them, tell them a little bit about how it affects. That personal paragraph, though, about how it affects you is critical, all right? And that's in the second bullet. Explain how the issue affects you and those around you. Remember the personal story. Use person-first language. You've got that handout. Include a photo, okay? Most of you probably now know how to do a JPEG photo attached to an email. Attach it. Keep the human face in front of them. You heard him say, I want to hear the personal stuff. Fine. Even if you were talking about somebody who wasn't here, or you have a family photo. I'm also attaching a family photo. Thought that might be helpful for you to see who we are, or a photo of my son or my daughter. And please show them, if you can, an inclusive environment, playing or doing something that a typical kid would do, if at all possible. Because again, you want to raise that expectation. And he seemed to be very open to that. He didn't seem, he's relatively young. He wasn't stuck in his thinking about them. I didn't pick that up at all. So that was also good. But you might run into that with some others and you don't know. So that's the letter writing piece. Use your own style. There is no right way as long as you cover the things that need to be covered. And again, be sure to put your address, both street number, city, zip code, and your phone number, particularly if they might want to call you instead of email. You never know. Again, I told you yesterday, people write letters sometimes that are so compelling, they want to talk to you. They might call you in for a meeting. Or as I told you, we had this mom in Minnesota. Her letter with the family photo was read on the floor of the United States Senate. She was blown away. I said, I can't promise you that will ever happen, but I said to you, it could. And I didn't read her letter, but it was unbelievably compelling, similar to one we heard here today about a kid who had complex medical health care needs, getting nursing, the threat of losing the nursing, and the mom was a professional with an MBA, basically saying, I would have to quit my job to stay home with my daughter and give up. And she put in the letter what her salary was. She's a taxpayer. She's a contributor to society, but because there was no guarantee she was going to continue to get nursing service for her daughter, who needed quite a few hours a day of that for her complex healthcare needs, mom was going to have to quit her job and try to be a nurse practitioner. She said, I'm not a nurse. I may have to private pay to get the home nursing service to come out to do some of that stuff. He was so moved by the story. He read it on the floor of the Senate, not in committee, in front of 99 other senators. Can you imagine the impact that had from that one mom and her story? That's not going to happen all the time, but I share it with you because it was real. We didn't orchestrate it. We didn't know that was going to happen. That she got a call. They said, they're going to do that. Is that okay? Somebody videoed it and sent it to me. And it was like, and I should probably try to find that video and share it. But it blew people away in Minnesota for sure who were in that partners class, but any place else who saw it. Here was the senator, and he didn't, he cut out a few of the sentences, but he basically read the key paragraph in there in front of his colleagues, Democrat, Republican, it didn't matter what. How could you not be moved by this as a human being unless you don't have any blood in your veins and you have, I don't know what. No, seriously. So the letters are important, and that's why I say form letters are irrelevant, and they'll tell you in the office, yeah, we don't count them. We know there's a campaign, fine. We got 500 of them, but they're not, we don't count them as much as we get 50 of this kind of letter, okay? So that's, again, from staff, not from me. All right, let me look here, see what else we got. Okay. Okay, my goodness, we're ahead of schedule. That's a nice thing. From your perspective, what else would you like to know? What else can I help you with? I'm here for a little while. And if we're done, fine, you get out early. I don't think anybody will complain about that. But seriously, what other information, tools, coaching, support can I offer to you? Because again, my goal is simple. I want you all to get into this, to enjoy doing it, and to get good at it, and then to reach out to friends and neighbors and others, because I've always believed the goal of partners is to help build an army. The partners graduates are going to be the core, but not everybody's going to be able to make it to partners for time commitments, resources, or whatever, but you've learned a lot of stuff. Share it with other people, whether it's inclusion education stuff or employment stuff or policy stuff or whatever it might be. Again, there is no reason any person in this state or any other state cannot get engaged in legislative advocacy sitting at home. They don't ever have to go to the state capitol. They don't even have to go to an office. It would be nice if they could. But again, today with Zoom, with email, with telephones, I can tell you there are a lot of people who do stuff. I'm going to take you way back. This was in the state of Virginia many years ago when we were doing family support. I haven't thought about this story for a long time. And there was a whole bunch of people wanting to get a family support bill passed. This particular mom had 2 children under the age of 10 on the autism spectrum who, let's just say, kept that household very, very busy, okay? And she reached out with a letter to her senator, who happened to be the president of the state Senate, that's just how it turned out, talking about all this. And he said to her, well, can you come into the office? I'd like to meet you and whatever. And she said, because of this, whatever, I really can't because my kids keep me up during the night. I'm kind of tired during the day. President of the Senate said, how about I come out on Saturday and visit you? This happened for real. I can't make this stuff up, okay? And at the point, there was not a bill. It was just discussion about what we want or need in that state. He got to meet the kids. He got to see the stress in the household, okay, not judgmental, got empathy. He agreed to sponsor the bill. Presidents of state senates rarely do. The bill passed unanimously and they got $1 million the first year. Okay, I share that with you. That mom couldn't get to his office. She couldn't get to, but she was passionate, and he came to her house, and that was probably better than had she gone to the office, because he saw the household experience and how these kids were really pulling on her time and that she needed some respite. She needed a little bit of relief. I hadn't thought about that one for a long time. So again, you never know. But if you don't start the outreach to build the relationship, as James said, it's never going to happen. And they're never going to come to you. That I can promise because they got plenty on their plate. So anything else? Comments? No? All right, then I'm going to wrap it up with, I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Because you say to write either email or mail.
Yeah.
If they get all these emails every day, and if you just say thank you, or, you know, should you put a catch in your subject line?
Yes.